solemnly swear that the evidence you shall give in the matter now pending before the court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
You can put your hands down.
I think he already got sworn, so you're double sworn at this point.
Please state your true and correct legal name.
Marquavius Huey, MARQUAVIUS, HUEY.
And are you the same Marquavius Huey on indictment 22 SC 183572?
Yes.
Are you at this time taking or under the influence of any alcohol, drugs, or medicine?
No.
How old are you?
28.
And how far did you go in school?
12th grade, high school diploma.
Are you able to read, write, and understand the English language?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that you were, in this indictment, charged with count 1, conspiracy to violate the Racketeer Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act, which carried a sentence of 5 to 20 years?
Yes.
Count 3, you were initially charged with armed robbery, which carried a sentence of 10 to 20 years or life.
Yes.
You were charged with count 4 and 5 of this indictment, aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, which each carry a sentence of 1 to 20 years.
Yes.
You were charged with count 6 and count 7 in this indictment, which you charged on possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony.
Yes.
And that carries a sentence of 5 years to serve consecutive to any other count in the indictment.
Yes.
You were also charged with armed robbery in counts 14 and 15.
Yes.
Also charged with aggravated assault with a deadly weapon for count 16 and 17.
Yes.
You were charged with hijacking a motor vehicle in the first degree.
Yes.
You were initially charged with possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony.
Yes.
Counts 19 and 20. You were charged with 4 counts of participation in criminal street gang activity, which were counts 21, 22, 23, and 46.
Yes.
And you were charged with possession of a weapon by an incarcerated individual, which was count 44, and possession of a telecommunication device by an incarcerated individual, which was count 45. Do you understand that those were your initial charge in this indictment?
Yes.
Do you understand that you have the right to plead either guilty or not guilty to these charges?
Yes.
And if you plead not guilty or remain silent, you may receive a jury trial.
Yes.
Have you had an opportunity to go over this waiver of rights form with your attorneys?
Yes, ma'am.
And is this your signature on this document on page 4 of this document?
Yes.
Have you had enough time to speak with your attorneys, Carrington Matthews Sr. and Carrington Matthews Jr., about all the facts and circumstances known to you regarding the charge in this indictment, including any potential defenses?
Yes.
Do you need any more time to discuss this matter with your attorney?
Nope.
Are you satisfied with their counsel and representation?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you waive formal reading of the indictment?
Yes.
Do you waive any defects, if any, with respect to the indictment?
Yes.
Is it your understanding, have you been arrested on all of the charges contained within this indictment?
Yes.
And Mr. Matthews Jr., are you aware of any other outstanding warrants for these charges?
We are not aware of any.
Have your attorneys advised you of the minimum and maximum sentence for each charge that you are pleading to?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that this is a negotiated plea of guilty, which means that the state will recommend to the court the following sentence?
Yes.
Let me tell you the sentence right here.
Oh.
As to count 1, which is conspiracy to violate the Racketeer Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act, the state's recommendation is 20 years to serve 9 years in custody, the balance of 11 years on probation. As to count 3, armed robbery, based on the negotiations, the state will reduce the armed robbery to robbery and offer a sentence of 20 years to serve 9 years in custody, concurrent with count 1, the balance of 11 years on probation. As to count 4, aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, the state will recommend 20 years to serve 9 years in custody, concurrent with counts 1 and count 3, balance of 11 years on probation. As to count 5, aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, the state agrees to null pros or dismiss that count. As to count 6, possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony, the state's recommendation is 5 years to serve, consecutive to counts 1, 3, 4, 14, 15, and 44 to be suspended. As to count 7, possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony, the state will null pros or dismiss that count. As to count 14, which is armed robbery, we'll reduce that to robbery, 20 years to serve 9 years in custody, concurrent with counts 1, 3, and 4, balance of 11 years on probation. Count 15, armed robbery, reduced to robbery, 20 years to serve 9 years in custody, concurrent with counts 1, 3, 4, and 14, balance of 11 years on probation. Count 16 will be null pros or dismissed. Count 17, that count will merge with count 15. Count 18 will be null pros or dismissed by the state. Count 19, possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony, will be 5 years to serve, 5 years to serve consecutive to counts 1, 3, 4, 14, 15, 17, and 44, but concurrent with count 6, and that will be suspended. Count 20 will be null pros or dismissed by the state. Count 21 will be 5 years to serve, concurrent with counts 1, 3, 4, 14, 15, 16, 17, 19, and 44. Count 22 will be null pros or dismissed by the state, as well as count 23 will be null pros or dismissed by the state. Count 44, possession of a weapon by an incarcerated individual, will be 5 years to serve, concurrent with counts 1, 3, 4, 14, 15, and 17. And counts 45 and 46 will be null pros or dismissed by the state. Do you understand that that's the state's recommendation?
Yes.
Do you understand that the total sentence is 25 years to serve 9 years in custody with a balance of 14 years? 9 of those 14 years will be served on probation and 5 years will be suspended. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Do you understand that the court does not have to accept that recommendation?
Yes.
And the court can sentence you to the maximum of each charge and can run those charges consecutively, one after the other.
Yes.
Do you understand that this plea may be used to enhance sentencing on other convictions in this jurisdiction as well as in other jurisdictions, including the federal courts?
Yes.
Do you understand if you are currently on probation or parole, your probation or parole may be revoked based on your entering a guilty plea today?
Yes.
Do you understand if you are placed on probation of any kind, you cannot violate any criminal laws of any governmental unit or any special conditions without being subject to revocation for the balance of the sentence?
Yes.
And do you understand that there were several special conditions of probation that you must adhere to, which are contained within this documentation?
Yes.
And have you had an opportunity to go over each of these special conditions with your attorneys?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you also go over with your attorneys your sentencing acknowledgments regarding this plea agreement?
Yes.
And is this also your signature on this documentation with your attorney going over each of the each of the special conditions of probation?
Yes.
And did you fully understand the special conditions of probation?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Hilton, can you pass that document up to the court, please? Thank you.
Did you want to review before I continue?
No, that's fine. Go ahead.
Do you understand that you are not allowed to possess or use a firearm while on probation?
Yes.
Do you understand that if you are not a United States citizen, a guilty plea conviction will affect your immigration status and will result in deportation, just like a conviction at a trial would, and that this is true regardless of any advice by your attorney or anyone else?
Yes.
Do you understand that neither the courts, your attorney, nor the district attorney's office has anything to do with parole, the Department of Corrections, or the Board of Pardons and Paroles, and no one can guarantee parole no matter what anyone has told you?
Yes.
Do you understand that there may be other adverse or unfavorable consequences as a result of this guilty plea conviction, just as there would be from a conviction following a trial? For example, your guilty plea may affect your right to vote, your right to hold public office, your right to serve on a jury, your right to obtain a passport, your right to receive, possess, or transport a firearm, or the ability to obtain employment. Do you understand?
Yes.
Do you understand that by pleading guilty to a felony, if you use, receive, possess, or transport a firearm, or use a firearm in a crime, you will be guilty of a felony, which may carry a sentence of 1 to 15 years in prison?
Yes.
Do you understand that you waive any and all defenses, including any mental health defenses, by entering a plea of guilty?
Yes.
Do you understand that if you went to trial, you have the right to a trial by jury, the right to see, hear, and confront witnesses called to testify against you, and the right to testify to remain silent and not incriminate yourself?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that by pleading guilty, you're giving up the following rights, and after each right, I'll ask you to respond? The right to trial by jury,
Yes.
the right to remain silent and not incriminate yourself,
Yes.
the right to confront witnesses against you,
Yes.
the right to assist with counsel hired by you or to court-appointed counsel if you cannot afford an attorney at the trial of your case,
Yes.
the right to presumption of innocence,
Yes.
the right to testify on your own behalf and to present other evidence,
Yes.
the right to subpoena witnesses and compel the production of evidence,
Yes.
the right to have the charge against you proved beyond a reasonable doubt,
Yes.
and the right to appeal if convicted of these charges after a trial.
Yes, ma'am.
Has anyone forced, threatened, or promised you anything to get you to enter a guilty plea?
No.
With respect to indictment 22 SC 183572, how do you plead to the charges in that indictment?
I plead guilty.
Is this guilty plea freely and voluntarily given with a full knowledge of charges against you?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that you may have only a limited right to appeal this guilty plea conviction?
Yes.
Do you understand you have 4 years from today's date to file a habeas corpus petition challenging the voluntariness and constitutionality of this guilty plea?
Yes.
Do you understand that you have 30 days in which to appeal your conviction based on your plea today?
Yes.
And do you understand that you have until the end of this term of court to file a motion seeking to withdraw your guilty plea?
Yes.
Your Honor, if this case were to go to trial, the state would expect, or if we were to continue this trial, the state would expect to show, or evidence has shown and will show, that Mr. Huey conspired with others to participate in YSL through a pattern of racketeering activity, and multiple defendants, as well as unindicted co-conspirators, have committed overt acts to further this conspiracy, to include drug sales, aggravated assault, and murder. Also, it includes posting on social media, asserting the violent nature of and the dominance of Young Slime Life, aka YSL. Specifically, Mr. Huey himself participated in 2 robberies. He posted on social media, and he engaged in text messages with his fellow co-conspirators. On April 26, 2019, Mr. Huey, along with another individual, armed robber Mr. Dewan Maynard, at an apartment complex located on Masargo Drive in the Buckhead neighborhood in Atlanta, Georgia, Fulton County. He robbed Mr. Maynard at gunpoint and pistol whipped him. Mr. Huey was wearing a very distinctive yellow jacket. He stole a ring, a necklace, a luxury wallet, and other items. He then fled the scene in a black Mustang. Portions of this robbery, Your Honor, were caught on surveillance video. After the robbery, Mr. Huey was seen on his social media account with the ring and necklace that was identical to the items that were stolen from Mr. Maynard. Additionally, on Instagram, Your Honor, on social media, there were several pictures of Mr. Huey photographed next to a black Mustang. There were several pictures. Lastly, there were pictures of Mr. Huey on his social media wearing the same distinctive yellow jacket that was seen on the surveillance video. Based on that evidence, Your Honor, arrest warrants were issued for Mr. Huey. While on bond for the April 2019 armed robbery, Your Honor, on October 1st, 2020, Mr. Huey went to the apartments located at 250 Fulton Street, Atlanta, Georgia, Fulton County, to meet with Mr. Gary Holloman. Gary Holloman, who is now deceased, told law enforcement officers on the night that he was robbed that Mr. Huey, who he knew, asked to meet with him so that Mr. Holloman could give Mr. Huey money to put on another co-conspirator to Quay Mender's books or commissary at the Fulton County Jail. Quay Mender, who is a co-defendant and co-conspirator, is the nephew of Gary Holloman. Mr. Mender and Mr. Huey were friends or are friends. Mr. Holloman agreed to meet with Mr. Huey at the location. While at the location, Mr. Huey, along with another individual, approached Mr. Holloman. One person had an assault rifle. They took from Mr. Holloman his car and his money. They also robbed another young lady by the name of Misha Coppage. Mr. Huey and the other unidentified individual fled the scene and left. Mr. Holloman immediately called the police. When police arrived, Mr. Holloman was able to use another cell phone to track his phone. He was able to track that phone going in the direction of I-75 South, and ultimately that phone was located on Oak Drive, which is in the Cleveland Avenue area, which is the area or territory for Young Slime Line. Also, Mr. Holloman was able to show police officers the social media pages of Mr. Huey to identify him. Initially, the police marked this case as an information, and the case was not initially investigated. However, about 1 month later, Mr. Holloman went to the police headquarters, spoke with investigators. He was able to pick Mr. Huey out of the photographic lineup. Subsequently, investigator Marissa Viverito, who was formerly with the Fulton County District Attorney's Office, found a jail call with Quay Mender, Mr. Mender's mother, as well as Gary Holloman discussing the robbery and Mr. Holloman discussing what occurred to him. Arrest warrants were taken out for Mr. Huey. He was initially arrested in November of 2020. During that arrest and pursuant to a search warrant, his home was searched. In that search, they found two rifle handguns. Also, they found items belonging to an individual by the name of Chandler Durham. During that search warrant, they seized Mr. Huey's phones and pursuant to a search warrant, did a search of those phones. Upon seeing the items from Chandler Durham, investigator Viverito checked the Atlanta Police Department database to find out if there were any police reports associated with the Chandler Durham. She found a police report from March 12, 2020. In that report, Chandler Durham reported that while he was working at a music studio, his car and additional items to include a luxury bag were stolen. After finding the report, investigator Viverito went through the contents of Mr. Huey's phone, and she saw a few text messages of note. She saw a text conversation on March 12, 2020 between Jeffrey Williams and Mr. Huey. Jeffrey Williams told Mr. Huey that they needed to take that shit back. Mr. Huey denied involvement in taking the items and blamed it on another person. Mr. Williams then told Mr. Huey in his text message, if he doesn't take it back, he's going to die. Also found in Huey's cell phone were two incidents in which Mr. Huey and Mr. Williams were in conversation with each other regarding rival gang member Rashawn Bennett, aka YSL Co-Defendant. On January 19th, 2020, Mr. Williams sent a flyer to Huey with a performance location of YSL Co-Defendant. The text message read, "Handle that tonight, slat." Then Huey responded, "Slat." Your Honor, based on the state's understanding, slat means slime love all the time. Then on September 2nd, 2020, Mr. Huey sent a flyer to Mr. Williams with another performance location of Mr. Rashawn Bennett. Mr. Williams texted, "Slatty, handle, and stay very low." Huey's response was, "Slat, and for sure, I've been out the way. And appreciate you for everything, my brother. Never about money with me. I'm built on loyalty." Williams' response was, "Slat, handle that, I got you." In 2021, we were able to recover another phone from Mr. Huey after he was subsequently arrested on grand jury warrants. When we did a search warrant of that phone, there was additional communication between Mr. Williams and Mr. Huey. Mr. Huey told Mr. Williams on November 14, 2021. You know I'm ready to handle the business and go sit down if I got to about any one of y'all on my mama. This text message followed information that was provided to Investigator Viverito by Kenneth Copeland. Kenneth Copeland, during an October 2021 interview, advised Investigator Viverito that he was aware of a potential plot to harm another another rival gang member, Kelvin Watts, also known as Shell Kel, at a venue, Diamonds of Atlanta on Northside Drive. Mr. Coleman advised that he was aware that Huey was to participate in this plot to harm Watts, and he attempted to tell Huey not to participate. Lastly, Your Honor, on February 18, 2022, while housed at the Fulton County Jail, along with Aquarius Mender, they were both housed in the same cell. There was a search of that dorm specifically, and inside of the cell, there was a shank and an illegal cell phone inside of their cell that they shared. And based on what we know from other evidence that we have, that cell phone was used to communicate with other YSL members. Your Honor, this is the evidence that we believe would have come out had we continued with trial. Given where we are, Your Honor, and the charges, we made a decision to resolve this case with Mr. Huey for the offer that was relayed earlier, Your Honor. I have a copy.
All right, and with regard to the offer, I just wanted to be clear that on counts 6 and 19, which are possession of a firearm during the commission of a crime, while this 5-page plea agreement document reflects that those are going to be served on probation, the intention of both parties is that those 2 counts be suspended.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay,
Yes, Your
and in your global sentence, it says 5 years suspended, and so I assume that that's what y'all meant by that.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. Mr. Matthews?
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon to this honorable court, Your Honor. I'd like to begin by expressing to the court that we emphatically and categorically deny all of the recitation that's been presented by the court with respect to some of these allegations that's been laid out by the state. However, we do recognize that there are enough factual allegations in the recitation to support each and every count to which Mr. Huey is pleading this afternoon. So we do stipulate that there is enough to move forward with this plea. For those reasons, Your Honor, we are standing before this court to talk to this court about the acceptance of responsibility with respect to Mr. Marquavius Huey. Your Honor, Mr. Marquavius Huey was born in Atlanta, Georgia. He lived in the Jonesboro South community, a neighborhood project in the Atlanta community. He grew up there. He's seen a lot of things in his short 28-year life. His father was murdered in 2010, and he's been without a father for a number of years. He's been raised by his mother as a single parent. He has a number of siblings. There have been times when Mr. Huey and his mother and his family have been homeless and have lived out of a car. So he's had a very, very hard life as it relates to his upbringing. Notwithstanding that, Your Honor, he did manage to graduate from high school. Mr. Huey, Your Honor, now has 2 children. He's 28 years old. He has 2 children. He has a 5-year-old son, Your Honor. He has a 2-year-old little daughter that was born in July of 2022. He has never met or seen his daughter in person until today, as she's here in this courtroom. He recognizes that choices puts him before this court in this case. Your Honor, we are asking this court to take into consideration that he has no prior felony convictions. I've had a very long time to get to know Mr. Huey because I've been with Mr. Huey on a regular, daily basis during the week since January of 2023. I've got a chance to know him. I've got a chance to work with him on his case regularly. And he wants to, when he gets out of custody, Your Honor, he wants to do a number of things, two in particular. He wants to start and become affiliated with a nonprofit organization where he can be able to talk to young children, teenagers, because he was a teenager when he lost his father, and things begin to take a turn for Mr. Huey. He wants to be able to tell teenagers, young boys, young black boys, he wants to be able to say to them, don't do what I did, and you have another way in which you can go. And he wants to be able to share his experiences in that way. I have linked Mr. Huey up with an organization called Young Generation Movement, and I've known that nonprofit organization and the founder of that organization for a long period of time. He's also present in this courtroom, and I've linked Mr. Huey up with them so that when Mr. Huey gets out of custody, he will be able to have an organization that can mentor him, that he can align himself with, where he can begin to engage himself with anti-violence nonprofit conduct and mentoring other young people. He also, in terms of being able to earn an income, because he is now, Your Honor, if this court accepts this plea, Mr. Huey will now, for the first time, be a convicted felon. He is not first offender eligible. He wants to get his commercial driver's license, Your Honor, and he wants to get a trucking company and be able to earn a living for himself because he recognizes that it's going to be a challenge for him to be able to go out and apply for jobs and be able to get income by getting an employer to hire him. So he's going to focus and target himself to be able to fend for himself so that he can take care of his young children that he has helped to bring into this world. Your Honor, we are here before this court because it's an acceptance of responsibility. We recognize that this has been a very long, enduring trial, and we have come to a point where we have painstakingly negotiated with the state of Georgia, and we've come up with a negotiated resolution that we believe is one that is fair. We believe that is sufficient to recognize the seriousness of the charges that are before the court, and we believe it's one that will cause Mr. Huey to be able to see the light of day in a reasonable period of time. Mr. Huey has been in custody. I'd like to enter into the record, Your Honor, as Defendant's Exhibit 1 for sentencing purposes, a proof of incarceration from the Fulton County Sheriff's Office. Mr. Huey, through the computations of the various times when he was arrested on these charges and released, and from the time that he's currently been in custody to the present, he has approximately 4 years under his belt against that 9-year sentence, and that 9-year sentence is parolable. So we're going to enter that as an exhibit before the court.
All right, that'll be Defendant's Exhibit 1 to this plea hearing, and as you know, and as I'm sure you have shared with Mr. Huey, it's ultimately the Department of Corrections that calculates the time served portion of the sentence, so it'll ultimately be up to them, but I will include that as a part of my sentencing sheet as well.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure and honor to represent Mr. Marquavius Huey along with my son, Attorney Carlton Matthews Jr., who also would like to address the court at this time, Your Honor. So we're asking this court to accept the negotiation that has been represented to the court and Mr. C.J. Matthews.
Yes, good afternoon to this honorable
Good
court.
afternoon, Mr. Matthews.
I've been gracious with this opportunity to represent and serve Mr. Huey. Mr. Huey is an honorable young man. Mr. Huey does not allow his mistakes to define him, but he is remorseful, Your Honor. He has learned, grown, and became a better man during this trial. Mr. Huey will have a release date, Your Honor. And I'm confident in him that he be a working class citizen in society when he is released. We thank this honorable court and we respectfully ask this court to accept this plea on today.
All right, thank you, Mr. Matthews. Mr. Huey, I am sure that Mr. Matthews Sr. and Mr. Matthews Jr. have, I know that they have been working with you and negotiating with the state for I'm sure the entire course of this trial and proceeding, but very, very hard over the last week and a couple of days to get where we are right now. And I know that you know that given the severity and the number of charges that you were facing, that had you been convicted of all of those charges at trial, you were looking at the possibility of 3 consecutive life sentences, plus I think about 100 years after that. So the fact that the state is recommending jointly with your attorneys that your total sentence be 25 years with 9 of those to serve is, it's frankly remarkable. And something that you should not take for granted or take lightly at all. These are very serious charges. And I hear what both Mr. Matthews have said about the challenges facing you in your life, and I am sorry for the loss of your father. One would hope that to have anybody that they love taken from them in a violent way like murder might have an impact upon their lives that would lead them in the right direction, but it's not particularly surprising that sometimes that's not what happens and it goes in a worse direction instead. I hope that with your age and with having really been faced with the distinct possibility of spending the entirety of the rest of your life in prison, the fact that you are getting this opportunity is not going to be wasted. I hope that you appreciate what the Matthews have done to go out of their way to line up somebody to be looking out for you when you are released from prison. I want to ask you, just like I have asked both Mr. Nichols and Mr. Ryan, is this your decision to enter this guilty plea? Because no matter what your attorney's advice is, it's ultimately up to you whether to plead guilty or continue with the trial. So is this what you want to do?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And have you had enough time to consider all of the different scenarios and to discuss everything you wanted to with your attorneys?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. All right. I think it's very clear that this plea is to your benefit, considering the potential downside of moving forward with the continued trial. I find there to be a factual basis to this plea. I appreciate the fact that y'all have stipulated that there is a factual basis. And I find the plea to be freely, knowingly, intelligently, and voluntarily entered with an understanding of the consequences, and I will accept it as such. And I will sentence in accord with the negotiated recommendation. I'm not going to read everything out again. We've thankfully got it in writing for the sentence sheet. but in accord with what was put on the record and what is reflected in this, this document. With a total sentence of 25 years to serve 9 in custody, balance of 14 years. After that, 9 of those on probation and 5 suspended. And I'm going to impose the special conditions that you have already acknowledged and acknowledged that you would abide by. And, you know, somebody with a high school diploma, which is more than a whole lot of people ever achieve. So you've already achieved and proven that you can achieve good things. And who is only 28 years old, and who can really look down and already see the light of day for a release date. You need to make sure that during your time incarcerated that you don't pull any of the kind of thing that you have been, you know, that you actually are pleading guilty to at least some of by having contraband or in any other way getting in trouble, because that's not going to bode well. I am going to recommend a transition program for you. I know that there's a lot of different job training available in our correction system, so I hope that you take advantage of that. And you know, whether it's a commercial driver's license or whether you find something else that you want to do while you're in there, be making good use of your time while you're in there and furthering yourself. And you have had a fine example next to you for the past 2 years of what somebody can do with their lives. So don't forget about that, and be the father that you need to be and that you ought to be to your very young children. They're still going to be very young when you get out. And please make sure that you abide by all your probationary conditions, because if you don't, then you're going to be back to see me. And because I recognize how much of a break you are getting right now, I'm probably not going to be as lenient if you come back before me again, because you are getting a huge opportunity to turn your life around, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so that's the sentence of the court, and I want to wish you good luck and good fortune. You can get through the next few years, and then you can have the rest of your life to do good work with.
Can you address the court?
Yes. I should have asked that, I'm sorry.
That's okay, Judge. Thank you.
I want to thank the court and thank God. And I want to apologize to my kids, my family, and everybody who done supported me in this stressful process. And, I plan to do my time, come back, be a better man.
I'm glad to hear that. Thank you.
Your Honor. Thank you.
All right. All right, let's take a recess.